Next up, we have Matt Graham, who is a forester in Washburn County, and he's going to tell us what he does every day as a forester. So, Matt.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lynn, for having me on. My name is Matt Graham. I'm a forestry technician for Washburn County. It's a lot of the same job responsibilities as a forester, but it's more of the equipment operation side of things. So our department manages 154,000 acres of county forest land. And then within that, we have about 200 miles of ATV and snowmobile trails. And then we also manage and operate 4 different county campground park systems. So it's a lot of the recreational side and then also the forestry timber too. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little background on me. I got my Bachelor of Science degree in Conservation and Environmental Sciences at UW River Falls. I was also in the Army National Guard for 7 years as a mechanic. I had 1 deployment to Afghanistan. And then I also, growing up, I worked on my parents' hobby farm. There I acquired a lot of skills running tractors, chainsaws, and power tools. And then also, while I was in the UW system, I volunteered for some different programs that was offered through the DNR and local government for tree planting or whatever work they needed. The next slide, please. So the day-to-day operations for us, they vary a lot and are dictated by the weather. So in the springtime, we're usually out in the woods a lot because there's lower snow depths, and then also the bugs aren't as bad, so it's a lot more enjoyable to be out in the woods and not getting eaten alive by mosquitoes and flies. So we're out usually marking timber is what we call it. So we're out there determining which trees are going to be cut by the loggers. And then also during that time, we do a lot of tree planting contracts, and we just facilitate that with whoever we contract out with planting trees. And in the springtime, this is our fire season, and we work in partnership with Wisconsin DNR with fighting fires during this time. So I am one of the dozer operators for the state, and so that takes up that time of the year. And then once, next slide, please. Once things start to green up, the fire season ends, that transitions us into building and maintaining ATV and snowmobile trails. So I'm usually on the grader, the dozer, or the skid steer, making new trails or upgrading them with our equipment, and then just making sure they're all clear for 4-wheelers if there's any trees that fall across them. And also during this time, this is more so performed by our natural resources technician, but we maintain and operate 4 different campground systems through the county. So that takes up majority of the summer with mowing operations, sanitation, and just meeting and greeting campers that come and go. Next slide, please. And then into the fall, we go back into marking and doing a lot of our timber operations again, that with snow depths being lower and then bugs not being as bad too, that's why we're out in the woods. So you can see the left picture where that's a prism that we use, and that breaks the plane of the tree, and we use that for measuring the amount of trees that are within a plot, and that determines whether a forest stand is ready to be cut or not. So it's just showing you guys kind of some of the tools that we use. And in the picture far right with the dozer, there's a root rake on that. Depending on how good of an acorn crop we had in the summer. We use that going through the woods and scarifies the soil, acts kind of like a tractor plow, and it creates a furrow for the acorns to fall in, and it creates a good seed to soil contact. And so it just helps promote oak regeneration. And then just with our job, it varies so much on the day to day. That's just a picture of my coworker. We had a culvert that got plugged up with uh, debris from a beaver dam. So just showing you guys how much things change from day to day. And then in the fall too, we do a lot of mowing for fire lanes that we maintain. That's part of that 200 miles that is within the county, and that just is part of the state recommendation for helping fighting fires. So we have a breakable surface that the fire can't go across. And then next slide, please. In the winter time, this consists a lot of equipment maintenance. Like I was saying, we have a dozer, grader, skid steer, dump truck, semi. So we do a lot of servicing and maintenance on that equipment. We also have 2 different ski trail systems within the county, so we do the grooming on that. And then we also do timber sale administration. And this is kind of like the last slide with Kyle with the agronomy. We go out and we talk to the loggers and do face-to-face, just kind of make sure they're following whatever prescription we wrote up for that timber sale, and then also making sure they're not rutting up the soil, just doing anything harmful to the forest, and also staying within the boundary lines that we established so that they're not cutting beyond that onto another forest stand or onto someone else's property, which would cause a lot of issues. And then we do a lot of GIS work. So we got a GPS unit that we use to mark these boundary lines and just set up timber that way. And we also have Whispers, it's called. It's a forest system that we have it programmed in a computer where it updates with what stands are within our county. So we do a lot of changes like that in the winter. Just depends on snow conditions. Otherwise, we'll be out snowshoeing or on snowmobiles trying to do what we can. Next slide, please. Just some of the recommendations for you guys. I know you're in a farm-rich area, so forestry isn't at the top of the list for priorities, but getting into some sort of natural resources classes, I don't know if your school district offers them, but getting into something related to forestry or fisheries or just along those lines of natural resources. And then also getting in contact with your local DNR office. They do offer some volunteer opportunities, whether it's tree planting or even it's not forestry related, but getting in and helping with the CWD registration offices. And then there is a couple programs that the U.S. Forest Service offers in the summertime. I'm not sure if those are going on right now with COVID, but just a couple opportunities that in the summer you can get your foot in the door with that natural resources volunteering, which is very important for this field. And then it's a very simple, but I think very important thing to do if you can go to your local library or school library and get a tree identification booklet and just go out in the woods in the summer with the leaves on, try to identify trees, or in the winter with the leaves off and trying to identify trees using the bark. I think that those are some things and easy things to do. It's also good just to get outside and get familiar with walking through the forest. Like I said, you guys are in a farm rich area. I think if you don't already, working for a local farmer would be a good thing to do. You pick up a lot of maintenance skills and maybe some operating equipment skills. And it's just a hard job, and it gives you a very good work ethic because you have to work in unpleasant weather conditions for, that are very similar to what we have to put up with. And then this isn't as important, but if you can take the ATV, snowmobile, and boater safety classes, you can do this online. You can do it after if you were hired through a government agency, but it's just, I think, gives you a step up in the hiring process if you had that already taken by then. Some good employability skills, just like I said, being comfortable going out in inclement weather conditions. It's not always sunny and 70. Working out in the snow quite a bit. I'd say about 80% of my job is out in the field doing something in the woods. So just being willing to work in those conditions. Having a positive attitude is a really big thing too. You just have to adapt and change with job responsibilities. So the day-to-day changes and just being able to adapt to that, I think, is very important. And your willingness to learn and be receptive to the job training. A lot of the skills that you do acquire and learn are on the job. You do learn quite a bit of it in school, but on the job training is most important, I believe. So just being able and your willingness to learn and being receptive to criticism, I think, is a good employability skill. And just good problem solving, because sometimes you're out in the middle of nowhere by yourself and things don't always go right. Just being able to think through whatever gets in your way, and just is another good skill to have. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel on what I do. So thank you.
Allison, do we have some questions in the chat? It looked that way.
Yep, there is one question. So when determining which trees get cut down, do you normally mark trees with a specific color, or are many colors used on different occasions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So depending on what kind of forest stand we're setting up, typically we use orange, and that is marking the trees to get cut. Otherwise, if we do a shelterwood cut, it's called, and that's usually for older growth forests, we use purple, and those are trees not to cut. And it just kind of depends on the age class of the trees, but yes, we do use different colors of paint to determine what trees are to be cut or not to cut. So.
All right. And you actually answered a question I was going to ask about, because so many of your pictures are about being out in the field, and you said you were there about 80%. So the other 20, is that doing a lot of the paperwork to keep track of what you're doing when you're out in the field?
We have a Whispers, so it's a GIS system that we use and operate. So we do a lot of changes as far as on that system. And then also we maintain all of our equipment ourselves. So a lot of it's servicing equipment in our shop. So that's majority of the 20%, I would say, that we are. We are always outside, it seems like, so, and not a lot of indoor time, which is fine with me if you're one that likes to be outside.